All right, so I'm going to be doing a video series on working with BoltzTraP2. And this first video here is just going to be getting you through the installation. So I've just gone through on a totally fresh environment. I did an Anaconda environment. If you're on like an HPC cluster, you might not be able to make Conda environments. Maybe you want to do it in a Python virtual environment or like a V and Venv, whatever. The way you would do it with a Conda environment is all I did is Conda create new, and I named it obviously BoltzTraP tutorial. And two things that I ran into. So one thing is if you're on WSL and you haven't done anything with it in a while, like typically I don't really use WSL except for very quick things. One thing you might need to do is upgrade your pip. So like some things you might need to do, let's just like tip.txt. One, you might need to upgrade pip. Two, make sure you're using the correct pip or pip 3. And then aside from that, you may need to install some modules. Like you may need to install which are not like built into the dependencies of BoltzTraP2, but actually are dependencies of it. Like for me, this was the packaging module. So I had to upgrade pip, install packaging. Now, 4 is version conflicts. You may run into an issue when you do the pip install BoltzTraP2, which I'm not going to do here because I just did it on the fresh install, and I'm kind of just walking you through some of the issues you might run into are version conflicts. So for example, NumPy for me installed to 1.17, but Matplotlib and I think ASE required NumPy greater than 1.21. So what you can do if you have this as a problem, if you're doing pip, you can do pip install the module name and then the version number. Or if you're doing conda install, for example, like with NumPy, I basically did this. So version 1.24 worked for me. And for the Python version, some super new like 3.11 was giving me some problems. So I did conda install python equals 3.8. This, if you upgrade pip, use the correct version like pip 3. If you have a conflict there in your system, like if you were using some old Python 2 stuff, you may need to install the additional modules, but it will be obvious because the error will say like module not found. So you can just pip it or conda install those. And then the last thing is you might run into some version conflicts. These can be the trickiest to, not trickiest to deal with because it's not hard, but is sort of tedious if you have a lot of these, if you're not in a fresh environment or something like that. So do this stuff. The other thing is optional PyFFTW install. This will make certain parts of, BoltzTraP2 is basically works on like Fourier interpolation of a band structure, and so having PyFFTW can speed things up. For this tutorial, we're working with small systems, and realistically, compared to like an electronic structure calculation, BoltzTraP2 is fast regardless of whether or not you have PyFFTW. Now, the other important thing to do is, and especially, why can't I clear? Especially you'll probably want to do this if you are working with, if you have PyFFTW, because PyFFTW, if it's not installed correctly or depending on your system setup, can give you some additional problems. So one thing we're going to do is I'm just on the GitLab. Let's clone the repo. I just clicked clone, clicked copy to clipboard. We're going to git clone this thing here. Hopefully it doesn't say we have any issues with permissions or anything. We want to run the tests here. We want to run the tests for 2 reasons. One, because it's good to run tests. 3 reasons, really. One, because it's good to run tests in general Two, because PyFFTW, if you're going to install that, can give you some issues if it's, again, not configured correctly. And three, you want to make sure it's working for the code that you're trying to do things with. So for us, that will be GPA, but it doesn't have to be so. You can use Quantum Espresso, VASP, CP2K, I think, whatever. And you want to make sure that you're passing for the tests that you are, setting things up for. So if you are going to be following the video series with me, like side by side, you're going to want to install GPA. And if you're not, then that's fine, but just realize, you're going to have to kind of troubleshoot like your QE XML files and this sort of stuff. And so GPA has kind of a lot of dependencies, as you can see. So we'll just do these. If this takes a crazy long time, I'll skip ahead. Okay, apparently it didn't take long at all. And actually, it must be sort of pointing to a different install. Let's see. And so now that we do have the data basically installed from the GitLab, what we can do, is all we really care about is the tests. So I'm going to make just a temp directory. Copy the tests directory from back there here, and copy the data tar file here. The reason I'm doing this is because we have this BoltzTraP2 folder where we just git cloned, and it has an init.py in it. And so if you run the tests from there, that's not the one we actually installed with pip, and so it could give us some problems. It might not, but so let's tar or untar this data file, ls, and now let's do pytest v. I don't know if I actually have pytest. Let's see. Okay, so we have to install pytest. Let's just do that with pip, I guess. Okay, or pytest. Yep. Okay. Now we can do pytest tests. This might take a little bit. And the idea is typically in a code base like this that is interfaced with so many DFT codes, you might find yourself in a scenario where some things are failing. But just, check. So we do have a fail here. So we'll have to take a look at these after the, after the fact, and make sure, are they failing for a good reason, or do we care about what's failing or not? This bandlib thing is the main thing you care about in this code base, and FD and FitE. So we have a skip test. Guessing that might be because no PyFFTW, but I don't know. And looks like we're stalling on one of these. No, so it's fine. If this takes too long, again, I'll skip ahead and get to the end. And then at the end, we'll just kind of double check that the Python bindings are working with the same install of Python that's like in our path. Which I don't foresee any problems with. I think there is one more after IO. Let's see. Looking over on the GitLab, it looks like we have test key point reduction, test sphere. And then hopefully these will be good. Basically what it is doing is it's running through checking all of these. Currently it's checking like all of the parsers. So like there's a parser for VASP, there's a parser for all of the different codes. And this is going to tell you if it's going to work for the code that you're trying to deal with. Okay, so they are done. We can look at the tests, and we see that all the failed tests have ABINET. ABINET is like a first principles electronic structure code. We're not going to use it, so, you know, who cares? You can, if you, I mean, this is probably, I know ABINET is Python based, so it may actually just be because I don't have ABINET installed. Or the code base could not be very updated for the ABINET stuff. So, but that's really it. So, and I guess last thing, let's import BoltzTraP2. Okay, so we're good. And let's make sure it's the correct one. So for me, that's in the correct spot. Okay, so that is really it. And this is what I was saying. This is why we made a new folder to do the tests, because if we did it in the previous folder, it would be pointing to the BoltzTraP2 that we just cloned from the GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and actually delete all of that. I'll just remove, let's move temp back here, and then remove all of this stuff, and then move temp here. Okay, so now we have a working directory where we have the data for the tests and the tests. So, you know, if you're messing with the code base at all, you can always kind of return to this and make sure you didn't break anything. But that will wrap it up. So we now have a working install of BoltzTraP2 with all of the tests relevant for us passing, and we're going to be ready to move on to some of the actual content, you know, doing things with the code base. So hope this was helpful for you. If you had any problems with the installation, make sure to, you know, do what I was saying with those kind of tips. You can feel free to hop back in the video and look at those. And if not, then just get ready to hop into the next video. If you have any things that you need help with in the code base, actually, just feel free to drop a comment, and I'll, you know, if it seems general enough, I'll make a video doing that. So thanks for watching, and have a good day.